Well, brace yourselves for maximum crazy, folks, because this is deja vu all over again. Trump Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt returned to Fox News to pick up where she left off basically 3 or 4 weeks ago and resume her full-blown psychotic breakdown on live TV. Really is a sight to behold. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, as I've said before, for better or worse, and I would argue worse, Karoline Leavitt is the ultimate MAGA spokesperson. Much better at her job, much more of the distillation of the MAGA movement than Sean Spicer or Sarah Huckabee Sanders or even Kayleigh McEnany, who were 3 of Trump's previous press secretaries. Karoline Leavitt is the embodiment of the MAGA movement outside of Trump in that she's cruel, she's dishonest, and she's motivated purely on owning the libs. That's it. It's just spite and cruelty made manifest. As you will see here, okay, some genuinely unhinged shit from the official spokesperson of the Trump administration. Take a look.
You see how far they are moving to the left. They ran Senator Gillibrand and Senator Manchin out of town. Now they're running Chucky Schumer out of town. It's too bad he turned into a Palestinian. He did it for nothing, like President Trump says, because his own party is turning against him. And the Democrat Party is truly becoming a full-blown communist party.
So let's stop right there. Chuck Schumer, I don't like Chuck Schumer. I think it's Chuck Schumer's time to go. I think that he is not the leader in this moment. I hope he is primaried. Rumor is that he is effectively going to resign from the leadership and not seek re-election. He might basically pull McConnell, but that he's not going to seek to be leader or senator after this next term. Hopefully he's replaced by AOC. That said, what the hell are you talking about calling him a Palestinian? He is the highest ranking Jewish official in the federal government. Why are you using Palestinian as a slur? And make it make sense. Right? She's regurgitating what Trump says because that's basically her job. She's here to put a bit of polish and veneer on it, right? But she doesn't actually explain, what has he done to become a Palestinian? What does being a Palestinian mean in this context? Like, she cracks herself up like he's just a Palestinian. Like, what does that even mean? So it's like anti-Semitic on the one hand and also like Islamophobic and xenophobic on the other hand towards Palestine. Like, what the hell does it mean? All she's doing, again, is regurgitating Trump's weird, again, ethnic and religious attacks on Chuck Schumer. She could criticize him on all sorts of things, like his feckless leadership, in my opinion, of the Democratic Party, either presiding over or blessing the capitulation by the 8 Senate Democrats to effectively reopen the government. That would be a valid criticism of Chuck Schumer and the Democratic Party. Instead, she goes for that particular line of attack. Again, just showing how unhinged she is. I don't think even Kayleigh McEnany or Sarah Huckabee Sanders or Sean Spicer would ever open that line of attack, that weird line of attack against Chuck Schumer. But I digress. Here's another clip.
And we will get on that. But as for Gavin Newsom, I was not surprised to see him in Brazil, traveling the world, probably on the taxpayer dime, talking about climate change when his state, California, has some of the highest energy costs in the entire country. And we will.
So notice there, again, Gavin Newsom, again, she's simply regurgitating what Donald Trump is talking about, referring to the governor of the biggest state in the country, the 4th largest economy in the world, the economic powerhouse of the United States, simply because he's humiliating Donald Trump on a daily basis. Now, of all of the insults, that's the tamest by far. But again, I want you to imagine a Democratic press secretary like Jen Psaki or Karine Jean-Pierre making fun of the names of Greg Abbott or other Republican leaders, or like, Jasmine Crockett, Democratic Congresswoman, referred to Greg Abbott, who's in a wheelchair, as Hot Wheels. Imagine a Democratic press secretary saying something similar about, a Republican governor, or anything like that, insulting them in that way. Rather than offer substantive critique, instead she's complaining about his higher profile, that he's traveling to Brazil, that he's forging economic alliances, that he's giving keynote addresses. She wants to talk about energy prices. Energy prices have gotten worse for the country under the Trump administration compared to the Biden administration, which is why Trump's polling on the economy and energy are so atrocious. And yes, I imagine climate change would play a role, especially if you have one party that's dedicated to basically stopping any attempts to address climate change and regard it as a hoax. If we don't address anthropogenic climate change and try to adapt accordingly, I imagine energy costs are going to get substantially worse in California and elsewhere. But again, the GOP under Trump have basically walked back 30 or 40 years and have absolutely no interest in doing anything about this fact. As a matter of fact, Karoline Leavitt seems to indicate that climate change is a hoax.
Gavin has done so much damage to his state with the Green New scam and with this utopian pursuit of climate change that is just so false. It's built on a fallacy that he has run up energy costs in his state that people are fleeing his state. So maybe he should leave Brazil and stop talking about this issue that is hurting his own people and get back to governing what was once a beautiful state of California that people are fleeing en masse because of his horrific energy and economic policies that have made the cost of living in California completely out of control.
The cost of living, again, you are free to hit Gavin Newsom on cost of living if you want, but again, turnabout's fair play. The reason that Trump is the most unpopular president in American history by far, and why he has hemorrhaged what little support he had at the beginning of his administration, and why he is underwater on what used to be his undeservedly best issue, the economy, is precisely because cost of living under Trump has gotten worse than it was under President Biden. And you all used to hammer Biden about this. So again, that's a sword that cuts both ways. Furthermore, what is the fallacy of climate change? What are you talking about? And what's the Green New scam specifically that Gavin Newsom is peddling in California? What are you talking about specifically? It sure seems that to you, just the notion of climate change, anthropogenic climate change, the idea that humans have had an impact on the accelerating change in climate is false, even though it's been the consensus for decades between 96 and 98% of peer-reviewed climatological studies that you don't get much of a consensus about anything in the scientific community as that, number one. Number two, again, the Republican Party pre-Trump had acknowledged, they were slower to do so than the Democratic Party, of course, but they eventually got on board with the fact. John McCain, the Republican presidential nominee in 2008, he had, at what would now be considered a fairly liberal, particularly for a Republican Party, plan to address climate change, not deny its existence and not say, climate change is woke. No, hey, this is real. We need to address it because it's going to screw a lot of people, not just in this country, but the world. And it has downstream effects on all sorts of other issues, like migration, for example. Believe it or not, climate change has a massive impact on migration patterns and will surge people into the United States and make the migration issue and immigration issue that much more complicated. But all this is to merely service the Trump administration, Donald Trump, and by extension, I guess, Karoline Leavitt's beef with Gavin Newsom, because presumably, again, the Proposition 50, they're pretty salty about that. The fact that, Newsom got this thing passed and will effectively be able to neutralize Trump's gerrymandering efforts in Texas. Not only did Trump throw a tantrum, but he ordered Pam Bondi, and Pam Bondi has complied. She is suing Gavin Newsom to try to overturn Proposition 50 because, no, only red states and Texas and red states, only they can gerrymander. California can't. You guys can't play by our rules. These people are losers. But there you have it, folks. Again, no substantive critique from Karoline Leavitt. Just a full-blown psychotic meltdown where she's insulting people based on ethnic and religious grounds and, third-grade nicknames for Trump's political opponents and just denying the reality of climate change while simultaneously attacking Trump's political opponents on the very same grounds that the American people are pissed off at Trump about. You can't make this shit up. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.